Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Got another tier list video for you guys. Been a while since we've done one of these, but today we are going to rank all the archetypes coming out in set 17 Ultimate Squad, and we have a few criteria for this. We're in a bit of a weird situation because we have the set 17 ban list now, and we don't necessarily know like what the best deck, if there is a best deck, will be, or the best couple of decks. We don't really know that. A lot of us, are speculating. A lot of us are doing testing, trying to figure out what will be good for the next format for our competitive tournaments and stuff. But again, like, nothing is a really known quantity. We know certain decks will be good, right? We know U7 Goku will be good. We know Yellow Trunks will be good. We know Sin Shenron will be good. But we don't know what is necessarily going to be the best, especially when you factor in these set 17 archetypes, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank them based on how I think they are, not only in comparison to each other, but how I think they'll fare in the greater scheme of like a pretty diverse meta, because theoretically we should be going into a pretty diverse meta. I mean, we've been doing this for what, like 7 sets now. Just about all of the Unison Warrior blocks been pretty diverse, and this format should not be much different. But yeah, I'm gonna rank them based off those criteria. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways down in the description you can do so. But today, guys, maybe consider checking out my Patreon. You read the competitive articles that I post there. You can also inquire about coaching if you are interested in that, want to step your game up for the next competitive season. Anyways, let's get into this. I hope the graph is big enough now, because I know in the past they've been a little bit small, but I hope you guys can see the cards here okay. All you gotta do is really make out the leaders, and I've done all the reviews on all the archetypes, so if you guys don't really know what an archetype entails, definitely go check out the archetype review videos. But anyways, we're gonna start with red, and we're gonna start with Goku GT, so kind of like this GT family deck here. Okay, so when I'm thinking about GT, I'm thinking about one, it's an aggro deck. It's probably the most aggressive deck in this entire set 17 archetype pool. And the other thing besides that is aggro is taking huge hits on the set 17 ban list, right? King Piccolo, Gogeta Xeno, the two fastest and arguably best decks in the previous format, are pretty much getting neutered going into set 17, right? So there are some other decently fast decks. The main one that comes to mind is U7 Goku. But U7 Goku is also very mid-rangey and defensive, and GT is a little bit more like gas on the foot on the pedal kind of gas and kind of aggro. So I think that I'm going to rank this, honestly, I want to say S tier, because I think it's going to be one of the fastest decks in the meta. I mean, there are some real rogue ones, like you could look at Red Jiren, you could look at Agents of Destruction, but those decks are going to have to improve themselves to me. I think they'll be good. I think they can definitely steal wins off of a lot of popular decks, and they are probably a little bit faster than GT, and I would say GT can win on average turn 4, and you're probably really gearing to it on turn 5 when you get your leader's big free play ability of your 8-drop boss monster. But yeah, I think turn 4 is probably gonna be average for this. Again, maybe like Jiren AOD and like Broly red hand destruction can maybe win on turn 3 with the right setup. But as far as like consistency goes and just power that I've seen, I think that GT might be the best, if not one of the best archetypes coming out in set 17 Ultimate Squad, and it should be really good next meta as well. Next up, we have Rildo. Okay, I'm actually going to place this in B tier. I think that might surprise some people. I think some people look at this archetype and kind of look at it as trash, and that's also because of the comparison to GT, right? GT coming out, being the other red archetype, it seems, vastly more powerful than Rildo, and it is to a lot of degrees, right? But I played a fair amount of Rildo on reveal, and I thought the deck was actually pretty good. It definitely suffers some things, like there's a lot more energy you need to invest for your threats in this deck as opposed to GT, even compared to like U7 Goku. So no, I don't think it's gonna be like the best red deck by any means, or even close to that. But as far as like a super thematic deck goes, a lot of times Bandai has this thing where they make super thematic decks that are either really broken or really trash. Rildo's just kind of good in the middle. I think he's just decent. I think the cards are relatively strong, and I think that the Rildo boss monster, the old SR, is actually pretty decent in this deck if you can play around certain counter plays. And being in red, you have like Resolve Renewed to play around Charismatic Villain, for example, right? So I think that's pretty good. Then we have Toa. Toa is one that I think I'm going to be a little bit biased on, but we do have to consider the fact that Secret Identity Masked Sand is now banned going into set 17. That is a big boost for Toa, and now that Gogeta Xeno has gotten the axe, there is basically a power vacuum in the color of black, right? Like, there is no undisputed best black deck. I mean, I think people are going to experiment a lot with maybe like reboot Masked Sand leader, maybe some of the other Sand black leaders, try and find some aggressive decks they can play. I think people maybe will play Hatchiyak, but I always say that I really don't think people play Hatchiyak, even though I think it's really good. People don't play it because it's not the most fun to play. And then you have some other black decks like Sin Mill, which probably has some good matchups and some really bad matchups. So I think I'm going to place Toa in A. I mean, I've just been playing it for a long time. I think that it is really good, and with Secret ID getting taken out of the meta and the 2 fastest decks getting taken out of the meta, I think Toa can do pretty well against other mid-range and control decks, especially with a Mirror Creator Absorb engine added into the mix. I actually been meaning to do this. Hopefully I can remember today. I want to go update my current Toa article on the Patreon to show my current list, because it's actually a pretty significant change that I did to it. So if you guys are interested, check that out. Make sure to check out the Patreon down in the description for my up-to-date Toa build. Hopefully I'll do that today. But anyways, next up we move on to yellow. So next up we have Unison Goku, right? This is a deck that I have not been very big on. I tested it on reveal, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was whiffing a lot with my Unawakened Leaders top 5 Unison search, and that just tilted me enough to where I didn't want to play the deck anymore. That was before the Trunks and the Gohan promo Unisons got revealed. And yes, those do add a big power boost to the deck, because when you play one and, you know, send another one to the drop, you get to add the corresponding copy to your hand. So you get a lot of like added draw power there, and a lot of Unisons draw already. So theoretically you're having a big hand size, but I just don't like this, especially in comparison to Green Cooler, where, you know, Cooler can combo with all his Unisons essentially. Goku, you have that Spirit Boost effect where you can get like one big combo per turn defensively, but I mean, it feels so much clunkier because you can't pitch your Unisons for 5k like Cooler can, at least as reliably. So with that in mind, and the fact that Sin and Trunks Vegeta are just going into set 17 unscathed, I want to put Goku in C tier, but a lot of players that I respect have been talking highly of this deck, so maybe I'm going to put it in B. I guess if I was to rank Sin and Trunks in this list, I would probably, you know, put Trunks in S and Sin in A based on results alone from the previous format. So I guess I'll put Goku in B and try to be kind of fair. Then we have Piccolo. Okay, so Piccolo is in the same discussion, right? Where it's a yellow mid-range deck, so it's very similar to Trunks Vegeta. It's very similar to Unison Goku here. And I talked about this in the recent Patreon article where I discussed you know, the relevancy of yellow going into set 17. I think that Piccolo is very similar to Trunks Vegeta in that they both set up barrier threats relatively easily, albeit I think Trunks has to invest less energy and gets a bit more of an immediate payoff. But when you can set up a board in Piccolo where you have like Lord Slug, Super Namekian on board in rest mode, preventing your opponent from drawing cards, as well as Piccolo's simulated ability on board that's just punishing your opponent for playing any battle card lower than 6 cost, I think that's really, really good. I think it's a little bit harder for Piccolo to get there than it is for Trunks to get to its really strong boards, which really all it is the Trunks blocker that forces the first thing your opponent to play come in rest mode. I think that's a lot easier of a payoff to reach, albeit maybe a little bit less powerful. Yo, Dragon Ballers, quick break in the video to give a huge shout out to PPG, who is going above and beyond to make our organized play season the best that it can possibly be. I'm here on the PPG event management website. I'm going to link this down in the description, so all you have to do to sign up for any of these events is go down to that link. But anyways, real quick, we have MomoCon at the end of May, where there is a guaranteed case tournament for Dragon Ball Super. Next up is the Origins event, which is a huge one, guys. They have events going from Wednesday to Saturday. Practically every single day of the con, you can play a Dragon Ball Super event, among other card games. It's going to be an absolutely incredible time. Next up after that, we have an event in Denver, which is for the Pro Play Tour organized season. Not only are you playing for an invite to the Pro Play Invitational, but you're also playing for $2,000 guaranteed. And if you want to, guys, there is also a Team War event in that same weekend, and Team War is one of the best formats to play. If you haven't played a tournament with your friends, you absolutely have to do it. And then finally, an event that I know for sure that I'll be attending is the Too Many Games convention in Philadelphia. This is actually a regional for the regular Dragon Ball Super organized play season. So again, guys, super huge shout out to PPG. Secondly, this website is so awesomely laid out. All you have to do is go to this website. All these different tabs here will take you to the events you want to sign up for. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video. So I think I'm going to put Piccolo in B as well. Again, mainly because like Trunks and Sin would be A and S. Like, I think those two decks are just better than both these two yellow decks, but that's not to say these two yellow decks are bad. Again, I talked about my opinions on yellow Goku. I don't think it's that great, but again, players I respect have talked highly of it, so I'm going to leave that up to you know, the format to figure out. But Piccolo, I have played this fair amount. I like the leader a lot. I like the deck, but you do have to fill it with a lot of like fluff Namekians just to make sure you can search off your various effects, and that doesn't feel very good. Trunks overall just feels like a more solid yellow mid-range deck where you're playing enough of the cards to make sure the leader can you know, use its engine properly, but you're not just playing fluff cards that simply draw a card because you have to. So yeah, I think Piccolo and Goku go here for me at least. Then we have green Metacooler. This is going in D tier. I really hate this deck. Like, I actually played it a bit, and it was like kind of fun. I would take it to a local, but this is a type of deck that should have came out in set 2. Like, this is not a deck you should be printing in set 17. Every effect is just play more tokens, play more tokens. Like, there should be a certain amount of effects that do that play tokens, but like the SR for the deck and some of the other things in the deck should have done more dynamic things. It should have allowed you to like actually play Dragon Ball Super the way it's being played in the current context of the meta. Again, like, not every deck has to be a competitive home run for sure. So I guess maybe they were going for the more casual thing with Cooler, but if they were going for a more casual deck, I wouldn't have done it in green because green has been hurting for so long. I would have made these two green decks really good. But that leads me to talk about Cooler, which is a very interesting case. Cooler is probably the deck I have personally played the most in my set 17 testing. I've got 2 builds currently on the Patreon. One's more hand control and one is more just based on the Unison engine from set 17. And I like both builds a lot. Both are very good. I definitely lean more towards the Unison build. But Cooler looks like the first good green deck that we've gotten in quite some time. Now, I say that, but it's also not perfect. The deck has plenty of weaknesses. The deck does not draw like an insane hand. Like, it's going to be pretty infrequent. You're sitting at like 12 plus cards in hand. You'll consistently get to like 10 cards in hand, but that's because most of the cards in Cooler, they break even. They don't necessarily plus, at least in the builds that I've been playing. But you do have a lot of ways to pick at your opponent's resources, which feels very good. So for that reason, I don't want to quite put Cooler in S tier yet. I just don't feel like it's that fully complete of a deck where it's just going to dominate 99% of matchups that you come across. But it is awesome that green finally gets like a meta-worthy deck. I do think Cooler is going to be very good, very popular. People are excited to play green now. There's a good contender for it. So I think putting Cooler in A, I'll probably put it above Toa, to be honest. And then for these rankings, I'd probably put Rildo behind these 2 yellow decks, moving these around a bit. But yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with putting Cooler at the top of A in this case. Then we have our last 2 decks, our 2 blue decks. So we got the Red Ribbon Army deck, the Commander Red deck. This is the only deck that I have not tested yet in this upcoming format. And I don't know, I did the Archetype review, and it just doesn't really speak to me. Like, you have to invest energy in battle cards just to sacrifice them, just to get half of a Soul Striker leader, and your boss monster is super susceptible to every counterplay in the metagame. So for me, I'm probably putting Commander Red in D tier. I just don't see it. And then for Gamma, Gamma is an interesting one. I like this deck a lot. It's very, very interesting design-wise, where you get that OG Soul Striker untap 3 almost unrestricted, except for the fact that you have to now use Android effects during your opponent's turn for the most part, right? The thing I don't love about Gamma is that you awaken via a turn 2 Unison, but sometimes playing a Unison on turn 2 is way too risky. So you're either going to forfeit your turn 2 and maybe play a negate during your opponent's turn, or maybe just do nothing at all with those energy. That feels really bad. And then turn 3, you can play your Unison, then Awaken, and then you have 2 open energy available after that because of your Awaken. And now you're in another tricky situation, because if you play a battle card out of your energy that is not one of the Rebellious Will androids, you run the risk of your leader randomly charging a non-android card from top of your deck, and now you can't use your leader's Awaken auto. So if you guys have played Gamma, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a very, very weird turn 3 when you want to play a battle card out of your energy, if you can't guarantee that you're going to ramp an android from your leader. So I don't know. I mean, we saw hits to blue. We saw Soul Striker get nerfed, not into necessarily unplayability, but it's definitely a big nerf. SS4 Vegeta, if I had to guess, is probably just going to be the best blue deck based off results from set 16. And again, Gamma has these problems that I talked about. So I don't know. I want to put it in A, if not the top of B. But I still think it's very good. I still think that it can really benefit from a long game. You can still main deck Turn the Tide very easily, not feel bad about that. So yeah, this is my ranking right now. Let's go through it and see if I want to change anything. S tier, GT. I do think it's the best deck coming out of the set, especially because it's now one of the only few true aggressive decks in the meta, it seems like. For A tier, for this particular ranking, I mean, I guess I'd probably put Gamma in front of Toa. Toa is a questionable A tier, but in my opinion, so is Gamma, sort of. But Cooler, I think, is 100% top of A tier for sure. Again, Gamma, Toa, I think could be very high-end B tier, but I think for this purpose, you know, having 3 in A, having 3 in B, this makes sense. Piccolo, Unison Goku, I don't think they're better than Trunks or Sin. Rildo, just very good, like middle of the line red deck. Honestly, it probably deserves to be in C, because I think that Piccolo and Goku can actually contend in the meta, given certain circumstances. But Rildo, I mean, they're just better red decks to play, unfortunately. So Rildo probably belongs in C, and that fills out our graph a little bit more nicely. And then in D tier, I mean, 2 real gimmicky archetype decks that don't pull off their gimmick particularly well. So yeah, I like this ranking a lot. I think this is this makes a lot of sense to me. Of course, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about this tier list. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.